Hello, I'm going to share a little tip with you, and it's the way that I manage grades and my grade book. Now, this isn't OLED's best practices or anything like that. It's something that I do personally that I think may help some of you. Let me share my screen, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible. There we go. So you'll notice that in the in the course navigation menu, that I do not have grades showing. So see grades. This is the first week of class. I already have assignments that have come in. These assignments are not really assignments where they need to see how their grades are progressing or anything like that. And I've instructed students on how they can see their score, they can see what documents they uploaded, they can read feedback, and they can see the rubric and view feedback, any annotations I made on their work, which doesn't happen until the 3 topics assignment. They can see all of that by going through the modules list and then clicking on the assignment and looking at the top right-hand corner. They do not need the grade book to do any of those things that I just mentioned. So that's why I keep the grades tab hidden. I unhide it or enable it so that they can see that around the end of week 2, because by then I do make copious annotations on their critical analysis. And then it's important for them to see and to be able to use tools like the what if score. So they can say, okay, I maybe perhaps didn't do so well on this first assignment, but what if I step it up? What if the score for the next one is this? And so that does help. So again, I keep that hidden. Let me go ahead and see if I can go into the grades tab now, and I'm going to try to see if I can keep the student name hidden. So I have the student name, it's on the column to the left of the total. Now, what I have done is that I've moved the total to be right next to, adjacent to the name. So what I've done is I click on the 3 dots and then I move to. So here I can move to end, which means that now my totals are at the very end of the grade book. And it's to the right of my assignment groups. Topic for another quick clip. So here, what I'll do is I'm going to click on the 3 options there, and notice that sometimes you have to hover to find like these 3 options by hovering. But for the total, you don't need, oh no, you do as well have to hover. I stand corrected. So you'll notice that you don't see the 3 dots unless you move your cursor to that area, that gray area next to the total title. And then the 3 dots, the more options will appear. I'll select that and I'll click on the second option, which is move to front. There we are. And so now I have the totals right next to the student name. Now, a couple of things that I've also done is I enabled notes and I removed all of the unpublished assignments. How did I do that? I went to the top right-hand corner to the gear. I click on that gradebook settings. Here's my late policy. If you're going to use this to automatically update and apply grades, be sure to set this to 0. If you set this to 100%, it means that when a student has missed a submission, they automatically get 100%. Yeah, so that doesn't even make sense to me. So I'm going to uncheck that. Now, again, great for missing submission. Make sure that you don't leave that 100% or else your student's just not going to do any work. And then you have the grade policy posting. You can do this automatically, manually. I start to use a manual posting of grades when I have a cohort or when I have a cohort of students. So if all of these students are in Metro or something, or in a particular, from a particular high school. I also do it if I have siblings or people who are wedded to each other. Then I start to use the manual just so that I don't get emails. Oh, my sister got her grades. Why don't I have mine? Right. So that's when I'll do that. The advanced here, you can allow final grade override, and I can see how you might have to do that for a special circumstance. And then the view options. The view options, notice that I have mine arranged by first to last module, so that as the modules are going through, and then all the assignments are within the module, right? that I will be able to see them next to the totals as I go through them. But you can organize this any way that you see fit. The other thing is here I have enabled notes to show and not or disabled unpublished assignments. So I don't want the unpublished assignments to be in my grade book. They're disruptive, and so I don't really need that. You can hide the assignment group totals. I don't because I actually use that. You can also hide the total and override columns. So I leave those so that I can see those. And then also you have the status color for late, missing, resubmitted. So you can change the colors of that if you don't like the way they look in the gradebook. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel because I don't want to make any of those changes there. Another thing that you may notice, oops, let me go back over here. Let me see if that will take me back. Is that I have zeros. I've got icons that indicate that assignments have come through. So here are the zeros, here the icon that tells me I have an assignment there to grade, and then you have hyphens. The reason I have hyphens here is that last night I went in and I added folks from the wait list. So that means that overnight they came through. One of my best practices for myself is that I go in and I select default score by hovering on the top right-hand corner and clicking down to the fifth option, set default grade, and I do that to 0. So I do that throughout my prep before pre-course contact, and I can see 5 people have added since then. I do that so that I can make sure that all students have a default score of 0. If they don't have a default score of 0, then what happens is that their score is automatically inflated. So for example, here, this particular student has 100%. But how is that even possible? I have not graded any of these assignments that just came in, and they have null scores for the rest of it, right? So let me go ahead and set the default score for this to 0. So you can see how that 100% will now, and it's 6 people for this one, will now reflect 33%. Why? Because now that score is a default score of 0. And I will go to the highlight over here, the 3 dots, and then select set score and 0. Now, what's my pedagogical reason behind this? I remember 9/11 and how after that, we would get notifications of green, yellow, orange, and red. Red meaning super high alert, hide. And watching that in the news every day was very stressful. It was anxiety ridden because you kept going up and down emotionally in terms of your own safety and the safety of your family. Sometimes at the beginning would be like, oh God, I don't think I want to go to I used to work at UC Berkeley. I don't want to go to Berkeley today because I'm not sure if they're going to hit the Campanile. So I don't want my students to ever feel the stress of going from 100% down to 90, up to 93, down to 80. That whole up and down, I don't think is helpful. Plus, I'm old school. I remember the olden days where you used to get your work, it had a score on it, and then you figured, okay, this is my feedback. Let me apply that to the next assignment, and then you would improve your score, right? Unless you were doing all of the math for weighted groups and everything, you didn't really know what grade you had. But right now, students think they have, say, a 90, not realizing that the final research paper, which is worth 40% of their grade, doesn't come up until November, right? So what happens after that is graded. Most students no longer have that 90 if they ever kept it all the way till November. And now they're all the way back down, right? To potentially even 70, depending on how well they were doing. So here they always see their real score real time. They see what they have accrued, what they've accumulated, and what score they actually have earned so far today. Now, again, this is the way I do it. You can play with one class one semester. Keep your other classes at the default, right? At the other class, use a default 0, and then just see sort of what happens. I do give my students plenty of feedback that in terms of how the scores are going to be managed so that they don't freak out, because they kind of do. Those students who do not read the my announcements, they do freak out a little bit when they see this. Now, if you only have one person who has that score of 0, I mean, who has that hyphen, then maybe you just do this, right? And then you just check and you go through and you just add the zeros all the way through. That might be easy if you just have one student, right? Now, if you have maybe 5, then maybe you want to use the default score because that might be faster and it will take care of all of the students' assignments instead of doing this for every single student. The other tip here is that at a certain point, what I do is I reorganize my total scores by clicking on the total and then sorting, and I sort low to high. And the reason I sort low to high is I want to make sure that every time I'm coming in here, I'm double checking what students have submitted work and what students I need to reach out to. And so these two, I shouldn't see zeros. If I see zeros at the end, say tomorrow, which is Thursday, then I am going to drop these students after having reached out to them, right? Because they need to submit work. They need to be active in the course. Again, so one of the things, and then I love using the notes and the totals over here because on the modules, I can just scroll and be wherever we are within the modules list. So the very beginning of this, you'll notice that that I have very simple assignments that are not worth a lot of points because I want to make sure that students are able to complete a survey or a quiz. I want to make sure that they can upload an assignment, a document, and I want to make sure they know how to participate in a discussion. And so that's why I have these 3 required assignments right there. Now, this is going to be a bit longer than I had hoped for a quick clip, but I think that understanding the pedagogy behind why I do this might help. The other thing that I'm going to do is that I notice I have new students in my course. So I'm going to go over to the People's tab, and I have already small groups that I've set up. If a student is not in a small group and the discussion has begun with small group setting, they won't be able to participate once it's begun. So I always try to go in and make sure that I move all of these people into a group. Now, the other thing is that it also gives me a list of students that I can then email and personally welcome because they probably didn't get my initial welcome to the course emails. Okay. This was sort of long. I apologize. Please skip forward to any parts, pause, rewind me. I hope you find this helpful. Have a wonderful day. Bye.